Now, moving on, because NHS Dentistry is something else that we're talking about this morning. It's at its most perilous point ever. There are warnings that urgent reforms are needed.
Yeah, this morning, Labour has pledged to restore NHS Dentistry, which, of course, is in a state of complete collapse, by providing 700,000 more appointments. But the Nuffield Trust say that those plans probably wouldn't stop the decline. So let's talk to the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, who's joining us now.
Good morning.
Good morning, Darren. Thank you for coming on. So NHS Dentistry, as I say, has all but evaporated in the UK. It's nothing like it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. People pulling their own teeth in the kitchen with pliers because they can't get an appointment with a dentist to get an extraction. How would Labour fix this?
Well, good morning. You're right that the state of NHS dentistry is entirely unacceptable, and millions of people across the country and a huge number of children, sadly, know that they can't get access to see a dentist for routine care, and so many don't bother trying to ask because there's no one picking up the phone for NHS patients. So we've said a couple of things in the Labour Party today. The first is that we recognise there's a need for immediate action, so emergency care for people who have been waiting too long to get their fillings or root canals or kind of tooth removals done. And we've said that we would put £100 million into the pockets of dentists to require them to do those NHS appointments, to do that urgent care. And that's important because the way the contract is structured today with the government, NHS dentists are only allowed to do a certain amount of NHS work each year, but they have plenty of time to do private work. And so we're saying, well, we should give more money to those dentists to help them see patients on NHS treatment plans to get that emergency work done. That could happen right now, and if Labour were in government today, we would do that today.
OK. Is this going to be enough, though? The Nuffield Trust has responded to your plans, and they say, although they make good sense, they say piecemeal measures alone unlikely to stem the decline that we're seeing, and they say that there's going to be a re-evaluation needed, either through massive expansion, which will cost billions, or you have to face the fact that you're going to have to reduce services to a basic core for everybody and re-look at this whole thing about free dental care.
Well, the key thing about dental care is that prevention is a really, really important part of the strategy. So if we can make sure that people are looking after their teeth well, that they get good advice about oral hygiene, they're not going to need to see the dentist for this urgent care that we have a backlog of at the moment. That's why we've said not only will we incentivise new dentists to set up dental practices in parts of the country where no NHS dentists exist or very few of them exist. My region in the southwest, I'm a Bristol MP, for example, is one of the worst in the country. That will deal with the kind of the deserts of NHS dentists where there are no dentists. We'll get them there into those local communities. But also, we know that many, many children are ending up in hospital A&E because of teeth problems. And so we've said that we will fund an in-school programme that used to happen when I was a kid at school that helped children think about their oral hygiene and how they can do what they need to do to prevent getting tooth decay and teeth problems in the first place.
You mentioned your childhood experience. I'm a lot older than you, but I certainly remember growing up and as a younger man. It was absolutely routine to have a 6-monthly appointment with your NHS dentist. I mean, it wasn't difficult. It was just in the diary. And you'd go along for your checkup, you'd get your filling, you'd get your extraction if you needed it, whatever. There was just no pressure on the system. What's your analysis as to why we've got to this dreadful position in the UK? How's it got this bad?
So we have a couple of problems. One of the problems, as I say, is on prevention. So more people are ending up with problems that could have probably been prevented in the first place. So you need to put support in place to help children in particular learn good oral hygiene skills. You then need to make sure there are actually NHS dentists available in your local community that you can book appointments with, which is why we've set out the proposals today about how a Labour government would change that. But in the long run, NHS dentists are on a very outdated contract at the moment, which, as I said earlier, only allows them to do a certain amount of work spaced throughout the year, and then doesn't allow them to do that when the need comes. And so they end up having to do private work. And that's why if you call your dentist and ask for private appointments, you could probably get one this week, whereas if you want an NHS appointment, you might have to wait a number of months. The government has created that situation with the NHS dental contract, and that's why we've said a Labour government will reform it so it works for the future.
Can we ask you about something else that we've been talking about this morning? Dame Esther Manson's been talking about the fact that she has advanced lung cancer, and she's talking about the whole assisted dying situation, so it's been discussed this morning. What's your view on this? We know that in 2015, Sir Keir Starmer had talked about this. He said it's time politicians protected compassionate loved ones from prosecution by legalising assisted dying. But We haven't had sort of any further debate from him on that. What's your view on what should happen with this?
Well, this is one of these, deeply sensitive and personal issues that, whenever we talk about it, it brings our own loved ones into mind. For Parliament, this is one of those issues where it's normally a vote of conscience as opposed to a party political issue. And that requires a kind of very thoughtful process where Parliament would have to probably set up a type of committee to take evidence, for the House to consider the issues in detail, for there to be a debate about the checks and balances, the way the system works, to compare it to how this might work in countries elsewhere in the world, and then ultimately for legislation to be put forward by the government of the day and for a vote to take place in the House of Commons and in the House of Lords in order for the law to be changed. And so it's good that these issues are being discussed because they should be, but it would be a fairly long process for Parliament to have to get through in order to get what is a sensitive issue right in the best interest of patients and families across the country.
If you did, and of course you would have to get it right, that's obvious, but other countries have done that, as we've been saying. Every state in Australia has legalised assisted